They say a red-eye flight is quiet, peaceful even. But that night, Flight 768 to Zurich felt more like a powder keg ready to blow. The first-class cabin wasn't full, but every occupied seat hid a secret. Every face wore a mask. And by the time we were halfway over the Atlantic, it was clear. Someone wasn't making it to Switzerland. Let me start with the passengers. The ones that mattered. First, 3A. The name on the manifest, Elliot Greaves. Silicon Valley royalty. Or at least he used to be. The genius behind Pulse. The social media app that turned dopamine into dollars. But his empire was collapsing. Accusations of data harvesting, hush money, backroom deals. And now, whispers of him fleeing before an indictment dropped. He stared out the window like a man already planning his next move. But beneath that calm exterior, panic was leaking through. In 7C sat a woman the crew knew only as Carla Meadows. She booked late, paid cash, and gave off the kind of energy that makes you glance twice. Sunglasses on after sunset, a hat pulled low, and a trench coat 2 seasons out of style. Like someone who wanted to be seen but not identified. She clutched a large leather purse like it was her lifeline. Then there was Natalie, the flight attendant covering first class. Flawless smile, practiced charm. But behind those eyes was something else. Cold calculation. I saw her glance at Elliot when she thought no one was watching, like she was sizing him up. Or maybe remembering something he didn't want her to. Row 9 held a man who didn't speak, didn't sleep, and didn't stop scanning the cabin. Dark clothes, military haircut, not a wrinkle on him. A dead giveaway. Federal. Later we'd confirm he was an air marshal. But back then he was just a ghost with sharp eyes and silent intentions. Finally, seat 3B, empty until 20 minutes after takeoff. That's when the cockpit door creaked open, and the co-pilot emerged, pale, sweating, clutching his stomach like he was sick. He quietly slid into the seat next to Elliot without a word. That alone was strange, but it was only the beginning. The narrator continues. 57 minutes into the flight, we hit turbulence. Just a light shake, but enough to jolt the nerves. The seatbelt light came on. Most people ignored it, except Carla. Her knuckles whitened around her purse. She stood suddenly and made her way to the lavatory, casting one long look back at first class before slipping inside. 10 minutes later she emerged, purse noticeably flatter. Something had changed. At the same moment, Natalie approached Elliot with a drink. Neat whiskey, no ice. He declined. She leaned in, her voice too soft for others to hear, and whispered something in his ear. His body went rigid. He didn't respond, just stared straight ahead as she walked away without looking back. Then Elliot's phone buzzed. Not a text, an airdrop request. He accepted it. A single message popped up. I have the Zurich files. His hands shook. He typed a reply with cautious fingers. Who is this? The screen blinked. You already know. Confess on camera, or it all goes public. He looked up, scanning the cabin. Only a few passengers were awake. Carla was back in her seat, fidgeting. Natalie was behind the curtain. The air marshal was stone still. No clues. Then the co-pilot leaned over. I wouldn't make any rash decisions, he muttered. Eyes are everywhere. Elliot blinked. Excuse me? But the co-pilot was already rising, heading back toward the cockpit. Or was he? The narrator pauses. In the back galley, Natalie pulled out a hidden device, one of those earpiece communicators. She pressed the button and whispered, Confirmed, she's here, and she has the drive. That name again, Carla Meadows. Except now, Natalie added, and she's armed. A second voice replied, Do not engage until the plane lands. Natalie smirked. She's not waiting that long. Meanwhile, Carla discreetly opened her purse. Inside, a flash drive wrapped in gauze, and beneath it a compact pistol with the serial number filed off. The narrator says, So far it seemed like everyone was playing their own game. Elliot trying to outrun his past. Carla carrying something no one should have. Natalie tracking both of them. And the air marshal, he wasn't after Elliot. He was after Carla. But she wasn't alone in this. The twist? The co-pilot wasn't actually the co-pilot at all. Somewhere over the North Atlantic, 39,000 feet in the air, the lies began to unravel. Elliot sat frozen in his seat, gripping the phone like it might explode. The message on his screen still glowed. Confess on camera, or it all goes public. He glanced again at the supposed co-pilot beside him, but the man was gone. Disappeared down the aisle. Elliot tapped the call button, but no one came. The tension was thick now, the kind that makes your ears ring. Meanwhile, Carla wasn't just fidgeting anymore. She was sweating. She kept one hand in her purse, and the other clenched around the armrest like she was trying to anchor herself to the earth. Let me explain something about Carla. She wasn't some random passenger. She wasn't even Carla Meadows. 10 years ago, her name was Margaret Flint, a whistleblower who vanished after exposing corruption in a military tech firm, Elliott's firm. She'd leaked contracts, email chains, procurement bribes, but the government buried it. Witnesses recanted. She disappeared. Until tonight, the narrator continues. Natalie, the flight attendant, was in the crew galley, pretending to make coffee but really reviewing CCTV stills on a hidden tablet. Each frame showed Carla, boarding the plane, ducking her head, adjusting her glasses. Then Elliot. Then the fake co-pilot entering the cockpit. All of them, connected in some way she hadn't fully pieced together yet. She whispered into her earpiece. She's carrying, confirmed, but she's not the only one. I think Elliot's armed too. The voice on the other end responded. Neither of them are your priority. The man in the cockpit, he's the real threat. Natalie froze. What man in the cockpit? Your co-pilot. He blinked. What do you mean? He's not the co-pilot? No, the voice said. Your real co-pilot is zip-tied in the crew rest below deck. We lost comms with the cockpit 10 minutes ago. He took control. The narrator lowers his voice. At that very moment, the air marshal stood, calmly, like a man going to stretch his legs. He walked down the aisle, stopping at 7C. Carla. He leaned in and said 5 simple words. Mom, I need your bag. She stiffened. Do you have a warrant? He didn't answer. Instead, he showed her his badge, tucked inside a slim wallet. Her face paled. She whispered, he knows. The air marshal nodded. He always knew. Then something unexpected. Carla didn't resist. She handed over the purse slowly, eyes never leaving his. The air marshal opened it. The pistol was gone. The flash drive? Still there. He looked up. Where's the weapon? Carla looked toward the cockpit. With the pilot? Or the man pretending to be one? Suddenly, a loud click echoed over the intercom. A voice, unfamiliar, untrained, came through the cabin speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. There's been a slight change of plans. We're diverting this flight permanently. Panic rippled through the cabin. Someone gasped. A baby cried in coach. Passengers looked at each other, confused, tense. The narrator says, Natalie burst through the galley curtain, her composure shattered. She grabbed the handset and called the cockpit. No answer. Again. Nothing. She turned to the air marshal. He's not responding. The air marshal held up the purse. She says he has a weapon. Carla nodded. He said we were going to finish what Elliot started, that he wanted the drive, that it was all part of the plan. Elliot stood now too. I swear I don't know him. Carla snapped. Oh, please. You knew exactly what was coming. You paid for the silence. You erased the records. You just didn't know I'd live long enough to ruin you. The narrator continues. Then from behind, a thud, a scream. The cockpit door swung open. And there he stood, fake co-pilot, no longer pretending. His uniform jacket gone, sleeves rolled up. A gun in one hand, a thumb drive in the other. I told you not to interfere, he growled at the air marshal. Marshal reached for his sidearm, but the imposter was faster. One shot, right into the ceiling. Not meant to hit, just to freeze the room. Everyone sit, he barked. Silence. Let's get something straight, he said. This flight has 2 outcomes. Either Elliot confesses and hands over his login credentials, or everyone on this plane disappears into the Atlantic. You've got 10 minutes. Elliot's voice cracked. I don't have what you think. Lie again, the man snapped, and I'll prove you do. He tossed Elliot a phone, the screen already open to a video file. It showed Elliot, years earlier, screaming at a young engineer in a lab, calling her crazy, threatening her family, ordering security to clean up the mess. The woman? Margaret Flint. Carla. The narrator says, and that's when it all came together. Carla wasn't here to expose Elliot. She was bait. The real plan? To force his confession, then hand him over to someone far more dangerous than the law. And the fake co-pilot? He wasn't rogue. He was working for someone else. Someone on the ground waiting. The 10-minute countdown had started. And time, quite literally, was running out. With just minutes left on the countdown, the cabin of Flight 91C felt like a pressure cooker ready to blow. The fake co-pilot stood at the front, pistol still raised, staring directly at Elliot, whose hands trembled as he clutched the phone loaded with that damning video. 5 minutes, the imposter warned. I suggest you start talking. Elliot's voice cracked as he whispered. Fine. You want a confession? Here's the truth. He stood up slowly, careful not to make any sudden movements. 10 years ago, we tested a prototype for the military. It wasn't ready. We knew it had a flaw, one that could cause catastrophic overheating. But the contract was worth billions. We buried the report. He glanced at Carla. She tried to stop it. She filed complaints, talked to lawyers. We threatened her. She leaked documents anyway. Carla muttered, "And they called me insane." Elliot nodded. "We didn't just destroy your life. We signed off on a weapons system that killed 19 people in Syria before it was quietly shelved." The narrator continues. The cabin was silent. No one moved. Even the flight attendants stood frozen in the galley, processing what they'd just heard. Then the imposter said something no one expected. "That's all I needed." He lowered the gun and smiled. The passengers gasped. Elliot blinked. "What?" "I wasn't going to crash the plane," the imposter said calmly. "That would be a waste. You see, this whole flight, it's been a stage." He turned to face the passengers. "Every second of this is being streamed. Multiple cameras, multiple feeds. You're all witnesses." He gestured to a small camera wedged in the overhead panel, another hidden in the exit sign, one beneath the beverage cart. "You think the truth dies at 39,000 feet? He asked. "Not today." Elliot lunged toward him, but the imposter was ready. He stepped aside, sweeping Elliot's leg and sending him crashing to the floor. Then Carla stepped forward. She bent down beside Elliot. "For 10 years I waited for this, for you to admit it, for the world to hear it." Elliot looked up, stunned. "Wait, this wasn't about justice. This was revenge." Carla shook her head. "No, this was justice wearing different clothes." The narrator says. Then the air marshal reappeared, handcuffs in hand. "I just got confirmation," he said, approaching Elliot. "Federal agents are waiting when we land. Your confession was recorded, every word." Elliot looked like a man seeing his own ghost. "Carla, please." She turned her back on him. Natalie picked up the intercom, announcing to the cabin, "We are returning to JFK. Please remain seated." The imposter, no longer playing co-pilot, walked calmly to the rear of the plane and sat beside Carla. She whispered something to him, and he smiled softly. She said, "You always were better with endings." The narrator continues. 2 hours later, as the plane taxied toward a swarm of flashing lights and waiting agents, Elliot sat cuffed between 2 armed marshals, head bowed. News stations were already live-streaming the plane's arrival. Social media was flooded with footage, Carla's story, Elliot's confession, the shadowy military program brought to light. But even in victory, Carla didn't smile. She stared out the window, eyes glassy, because she knew what the world would never hear. How many others paid the price? How long she spent in hiding? How much of her own soul she had to sacrifice to make this flight happen? And the imposter? He vanished. No name, no ID, no trace. When Carla was escorted off the plane, she turned back just once, searching the crowd. He was gone. The narrator finishes, and maybe that was always the plan, to give her justice, and then disappear into the clouds. Because some people don't live on land. Some people live in the sky, where secrets fly high, until someone finally brings them crashing down.